because of advances in the process of flash freezing embryos. This is a technology called vitrification. It's now so much safer to freeze embryos, eggs, sperm, and frozen embryo transfers now have been found to produce higher implantation and pregnancy rates than a fresh transfer. So the difference is, like with a fresh transfer, the embryo is transferred into the woman's uterus about 3 to 5 days after the egg retrieval. With a frozen transfer, it can happen at any time. And so after those eggs are fertilized, instead of transferring one into the uterus of the woman, they are all flash frozen. And so there's a lot of advantages to a frozen cycle. The reason they weren't done, or the reason why they weren't as successful before vitrification was developed, was because it could be common for ice crystals to form in the eggs and the embryos, and then as they thawed, it could create issues. But that pretty much almost never happens anymore because of how amazing vitrification is. Okay, so there's big scheduling advantages with a fresh embryo transfer. Again, there's a very, very tight timeline. With the fresh or with the frozen transfer, it can happen really at any time. And obviously the embryo is thawed before it's transferred, but it is frozen first. Another benefit is that the medications that are used during an egg retrieval are out of the woman's system by the time she has the frozen transfer. And those medications being present in the woman's body, they cause elevated levels of certain hormones that could decrease the chance of the embryo implanting. And so again, she's less likely to have an elevation in these hormones during a frozen transfer because her body's had enough time to clear those hormones. There is a lower chance of OHSS, which is ovarian hyperstimulation syndrome. And so when a woman goes through an egg retrieval and a fresh embryo transfer soon after, she has a higher chance of developing OHSS, which it's caused by an elevation in hormones, an extreme elevation, and it can cause swelling in the ovaries and a lot of discomfort. But it's very rarely dangerous. And a frozen embryo transfer really reduces the chance of OHSS because, again, as I just said, those hormones and all those medications that a woman takes during the IVF cycle, when she's taking those ovarian stimulation medications, have cleared the system. Often the uterine lining is also more receptive during a frozen transfer because the woman has typically been taking estrogen for at least about 2 weeks leading up to the frozen transfer to ideally prepare the lining of the uterus. There is time for genetic testing during a frozen transfer. So a frozen transfer, it offers more time for that pre-implantation genetic testing, PGT. There's 2 different types of pre-implantation genetic testing, PGTA and PGTM, which I'm going to cover in a different video, go deep into what those are. And this helps to ensure that the healthiest embryo is able to be transferred into the uterus. And it's been found that there's often better outcomes for the baby, for babies conceived through a frozen embryo transfer, and they're less likely to have a low birth weight. Okay, so preparation for a frozen embryo transfer. So as I kind of mentioned, a frozen embryo transfer, it's a lot easier on a woman's body because she's able to fully heal after that egg retrieval before then preparing for the embryo transfer. And she will self-administer estrogen for the 2 weeks leading up to the transfer. That allows that uterine lining to thicken. And when the lining is at least 7 millimeters thick, the woman's progesterone level will be tested to ensure she hasn't ovulated. And then the embryo is thawed and transferred into her uterus. About a week later, she'll go into the clinic for a pregnancy test, and hopefully she's pregnant. If you have any questions about this, anything else about fertility, pregnancy, childbirth, let me know in the comments below.